Hello. Welcome all viewers in our today's session on road safety. Myself, Dr. Rakesh Agrawal, Secretary General, Risk Management Association of India. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Prakash Jadhav, with us, who will deliberate on road safety. We also have Professor Dr. Abhijit Chaturaj, Vice President RMAI, and Chair Professor PGDM, Insurance Business Management, BIMTech. Before I request Professor Chaturaj to introduce Dr. Jadhav, let me briefly introduce Risk Management Association of India. RMAI is a global body dedicated to education, research, and development in the area of risk management. Over the last few years, we have undertaken a lot of activities for promotion of risk management discipline. Recently, we launched an online certificate course on risk management, which has been running quite successfully. During the Road Safety Month this year, from January to 17th February, we organized a road safety seminar in Kolkata on 13th February in association of Institute of Surveyors and Loss Assessors. So road safety continues to be a major developmental issue, public health concern, and a leading cause of death and injury across the world. And I think killing more than 1.35 million people globally. And over 400 people are killed in road accidents every day, and over 1,200 are injured in every day in India. So this webinar is a step in that direction to make everyone aware about the importance of road safety. I'd now request Dr. Chaturaj to take over the session.
Good afternoon, all viewers, and many thanks, Dr. Rakesh Agrawal. I have the great pleasure to introduce Dr. Prakash Jadhav, and he's a very well-known name in insurance teaching. I would rather say in insurance teaching. My association goes back to my NIA days, and how did I rope in? I'll come to that part a little later. But a brief introduction about him is that he has 34 years of services in the Maharashtra Motor Vehicle Department, worked in various field and administrative capacities as licensing authority, registration authority, and enforcement authority. He also had a wonderful 3-year stint with the Central Institute of Road Transport in Pune. Those who do not know about this institution, but possibly this is the only institution in India which trains officers, RTO officers, traffic police, senior officers, and several state transport organization officers. During his stint with the Central Institute of Road Transport, he undertook plenty of very consultancy projects, testing a prototype of vehicles for homologations. The best part of it, which is very rare in motor vehicle department, he also obtained his PhD degree from Tilak Maharashtra University in 2005, and his thesis was on critical study of functioning of existing enforcement machinery of the Maharashtra Motor Vehicles Department. He also had a diploma in transport management from CIRT Pune in 1993, and he is also a law graduate from Pune University. So a very rare combination. RTO, he's currently an RTO, deputy RTO with posted at Bombay, an RTO who did his PhD and also had a 3-year stint in one of the most prestigious institutions in road transportation, that is CIRT. I came to know him my days in NIA, and I used to run plenty of motor insurance courses. And we knew that there are several issues related to driving license, fitness, permit, registration, etc., etc. And when I came to know him at CIRT, where I was invited and we came to know each other, we used to run programs after programs, and his 3-hour program would run into 6 hours at time also. The kind of queries that the various insurance officers would pose to him, and he would address all of them. He is a wonderful speaker in road safety. Also, he has done plenty of work. And with this, I pass on the session to Dr. Jadhav. Dr. Jadhav. Okay, he is joining back. He has some issues. He is joining back. Any issue, Dr. Agarwal?
Yeah, I think he's joining back.
Okay. Yes.
Is this okay? Yeah.
Yes. Welcome back, sir. And the session is yours now, sir.
Thank you so much, Abhijit sir and Dr. Agarwal. Actually, my venturing into the field of talking to insurance managers goes back to 2008, when Dr. Abhijit Chaturaj was in National Insurance Academy. And by sheer proximity, I entered NIA. And thereafter, I became a member of the regular visiting faculty. And since then, I have been talking to insurance managers. And this one more opportunity has come to talk to the stalwarts. And of course, that made me, I counted with Dr. Agarwal from Risk Management Association of India. And here I am today with all of you. Actually, the basic purpose that I am here is to talk about the road safety aspect, because only last week we finished with the road safety campaign, which was implemented throughout the country. It was 32nd road safety campaign. For the last 32 years, the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, with a clear intention to reach out to the people who are a non-driver population, so that the road safety culture should be inculcated not only amongst the drivers but also amongst all members of the society, because an integrated approach to road safety definitely includes all this population. And hence we had a road safety campaign this year from 17th January 2021 to 16th Feb 2021. And with this backdrop, I'm starting my presentation today with some cursory look at the major statistics for India. Shall I start, sir?
Yeah.
Right.
सर वो प्रेजेंटेशन वाला वो तभी हाँ यार नहीं ये हाँ सर ये लेकिन तभी तो मेरे पास वो ये आया था अभी नहीं आ रहा है
You can just check in
slide ठीक है we start with this sir basically majority of the road crashes, this word accident has been now removed from the official terms, and the term road crash is routinely used, because the accidental part of the accident has to be removed, because majority of the accidents occur due to human errors and they are not accidental events, and therefore the terming them as road accidents has been now gone to the past. Today we call road accidents as road crashes. So 85% of the road crash deaths occur in developing countries and nearly half in the Asia Pacific region, that is Asia, Middle East and the Pacific oceanic countries, Australia, Japan included. India has hardly 5% of the vehicle population of the world, but they account for 10% of the road crash fatalities, which is the impact is more, the fatalities are more. Of course, we'll be going through a little analysis after this. Nearly 5 lakh accidents take place, road crashes take place on Indian roads, and that result into more than 1.4 lakhs fatalities. And that counts that every minute we have a road crash, and every 4 minutes we have a fatality. That is a scale, that is a dimension of the human loss and the material loss. Yes. How do we go to next? Just a minute. Yes. So, cursory look at the vehicle population of India in 2016, because these are the official figures available from the website of the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. So, in the two-wheelers, we have almost 17 crores or 1700 lakhs. Cars and jeeps, these are personal vehicles, four-wheelers, which count for 280 lakhs or 2.8 crores. Then the commercial passenger vehicles, which include the taxis and various minibuses, they count for 87 lakhs. Goods vehicles total, they count for 105 lakhs. The buses, the large size passenger buses, they count 14 lakhs. And miscellaneous vehicles like the tractors, the boring rigs, the forklifts, the cranes, the ambulances, they all count. They are 120 lakhs. All put together, that is 23 crores or 2300 lakhs. That is of 2016. Next, please. So, in 2005, it was hardly 815 lakhs. In 5 years, it swelled up to 1277 lakhs. In 2016, as we saw, it is 2300 lakhs. And the estimated figure for the past year is almost that we have crossed the figure of 3000 lakhs. That is the 30 crore vehicles in India alone. Next, please. This is an interesting breakup of the fatalities available from the National Crime Records Bureau, which is very interesting. As we see, the first row talks about the vehicle drivers, which were amongst 728 deaths. There were 32 deaths amongst the drivers, and these drivers means excepting two-wheelers, all other drivers, that they account for 4%. Then the two-wheeler drivers, they are 205 or 28%. Now, next, these figures now interesting. The pillion riders, they are 9%. Pedestrians, they accounted for 40%. Cyclists are 8%. Bus passengers are 7%. And others, like hawkers or any other people who are mingling on the roads, they count for 4%. All this put together, they become 68%. I'm talking about the non-drivers now. The first two rows, they talk about the other than two-wheeler drivers and two-wheeler drivers, that is 32%. And rest 68% are the persons who are on the road, but they are not the drivers. So they are not initiating the road crash, but they are the resultant. They are the victims. And that is a whopping 68%, which is a very large figure. Because everybody on the road, say like a toddler who starts walking, he also comes on the road if you talk about the slum areas. And from that spectrum, all the sections of the society are on the road, except those very senior citizens who are not able to walk or they are bedridden, and therefore they just cannot come on the road. So if we remove, say, hardly from infants and the bedridden patients, even if you count, let's say 4 to 5%, then 95% of the population comes on the roads, and 68% of the victims are from these sections of people who are not the drivers. So this was the reason why the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways also felt that the road safety education should be imparted not only to the drivers, but to all sections of the society. Next, please. In this, we can see there is this term road user, which says that this definition comes from the rules of the road regulations 2017, which says that a road user includes a person driving or traveling on the road in a vehicle or otherwise. So all the occupants of vehicles who are not driving the vehicles and the pedestrians included, these are the road users. So as we were looking at the previous slide, it was the 32% victims were the drivers, whereas all the 68% people, they were termed as other road users, and these are the all vulnerable class. Next, sir. Now, when we go to the basic anatomy of the road crashes, we can see that nearly more than 80% or 84% of the accidents, road crashes, are accounted on human errors. Here, I am deliberately using human errors because not only drivers, but these other road users like pedestrians, cyclists, or other people who are not actually involved in driving, but they also contribute to such a fatality, this road crash situation. So all these errors put together, I say that the human errors count for 84% of the road crashes. The improper roads, improper road designing, or even climatic conditions like fog, heavy rains, or some spilt oil on the road, all these clauses put together, they count for about 14%. Whereas defective vehicles, they may be a little more than 1%, so I have put them as 2%. So when we look at this particular chart, we come to know that the human error is the basic factor that is causing accidents. And therefore, even the Supreme Court, Honorable Supreme Court also felt that things should be done by not only imparting education, but putting the drivers to discipline. And therefore, there is a subcommittee appointed by the Honorable Supreme Court. That's a Supreme Court Committee on Road Safety, SCORS, that has called for very strict action on licensing, very strict, rather, whoever violates the traffic rules, even their licenses are being suspended. And thanks to the computerization of the licensing throughout the country, now this has become a possibility, a reality, that licensing is now being taken as a very core point of penalizing the drivers. Not only they are challaned, but their licenses are now being suspended. And one more recommendation of the Supreme Court Committee on Road Safety was detaining the uninsured vehicles. Till now, the motoring public, the vehicle users, they used to, particularly the non-transport class, the personal transportation people, they used to obtain insurance only while buying a new vehicle at the time of registration. But then onwards, there was a total apathy for getting their vehicles insured, particularly in the countryside. And this was the concern for the subcommittee on road safety by the Supreme Court. And therefore, detention of the vehicles which are not insured, and the vehicles need to be released only when they are insured. That is a real point, that the insurance sector is now directly related to the implementation of the road safety aspects. And therefore, with this backdrop, now I'm moving to some core questions that I have always faced. Yeah, here we see the directions of the Supreme Court Committee on Road Safety. That is detention of uninsured vehicles, detention of fitness expired vehicles, and suspension of driving licenses for traffic offences, using mobile phones while driving, and overloading of goods vehicles. And therefore, now from this point, I am now turning in my presentation towards various basic aspects that the insurance managers always are curious to know from me whenever I counter when I'm there in the sessions. Sir, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, next, please. See, this one aspect has come to the very rather burning issue kind of thing, which normally people are not very clearly aware of. And therefore, I have put a question to all of you. Of course, I'll be answering directly. And that is that I'm trying to tell you the difference between a transport vehicle, that it is a category of vehicle. It's a vehicle category. And there is one term of transport vehicle, which is a class for license. These are two different things, which perhaps majority, I claim, they may not be able to differentiate directly. They only know the term transport vehicle, which is put on the license. But this transport vehicle term is being used in two entirely different scenarios. So we are going through them one by one. So now, next, sir. Next, sir, next. Right. See, this is a notification which was issued in 2004 by the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, which clearly differentiates which vehicles need to be registered as transport vehicles and which vehicles could be registered only as non-transport vehicles. So there is a clear differentiation. It is not the choice of the vehicle owner to get his vehicle registered either as a transport or a non-transport vehicle. Of course, barring very, very few exceptions. Otherwise, the specific vehicle categories are registered only as a transport vehicle or as a non-transport vehicle. And you can see the examples which are quoted in this notification of 2004, which says that only if a motorcycle is used for hire to carry one passenger. See, in Goa, we find the two-wheeler taxis where the pilot, the driver is the pilot, and only the pillion seat can be accommodated as a passenger, and therefore that is a one-seater public service vehicle. And therefore such motorcycle needs to be registered in transport category only. And transport vehicles here, I mean all the vehicles which are used on commercial basis, like you see the yellow plate vehicles. The registration mark is exhibited in yellow background and black letters and figures. That is a transport vehicle which could be easily identified whenever you are on the road. So the luxury cabs and the three-wheeled vehicles for transporting of passenger or goods and the goods carrier trucks and tankers, these are all transport vehicles. And on the same, in this slide only, we can see a few categories mentioned as non-transport vehicles, which are motorcycles for personal use, then the invalid carriage. Now the word has been changed a bit. It is an adapted vehicle since 2019 instead of invalid carriage. And then the three-wheeled vehicles for personal use and a motor car, these are all non-transport vehicles. And these non-transport vehicles could be identified by virtue of their white registration plate with black letters and figures. Next, please. Yeah, this is the next part of the notification, which reads about the mobile clinic and the mobile workshop and the mobile canteen and the private service vehicles, the public service vehicles. As I mentioned in the first slide, a motorcycle carrying one passenger also is a public service vehicles. And here public service vehicles with like maxi cabs and motor cabs, these are also public service vehicles. And these are all registered as transport vehicles. Whereas on the right side, we see the further list of non-transport vehicles, which include forklifts and vehicles and trailers fitted with equipment like boring rig, generator, compressor, then crane-mounted vehicle. A crane is essential non-transport vehicle. It is interesting to understand that a crane, when it moves on road, it doesn't carry any kind of goods. It moves only as a vehicle. And when it goes, it is stationed at some site, and on that site it lifts the goods and shifts. Lifting and shifting is done at some site, and only at that point of time they are operating with the goods. And therefore when the vehicle moves on the road in the public place, it does, by virtue of the fact that it doesn't carry any goods, the cranes are registered as non-transport vehicles. Yeah, even the agricultural tractor and power tiller, these are all non-transport vehicles. Yeah, we can go for next, sir. And finally, we find the education institution buses, the ambulances, the camper vans, and the fire tenders, and even the hearse. All these vehicles are transport vehicles because the definition of goods includes everything except living persons. So even a human dead body, a corpse, is a goods, and therefore hearse are registered as transport vehicles. And camper vans and tow trucks, spelling okay. Construction equipment vehicles like loader excavators, these are all non-transport vehicles. So with this notification, now we go ahead. Now we want to try to differentiate the transport vehicle as a category and transport vehicle as a class of vehicle. And here we come in section 10 of the Motor Vehicles Act, which describes the various classes meant for driving licenses purpose. So these are the classes which could be obtained if one appears for a driving test for some specific class of vehicle. For example, if a person goes and appears for a test and drives a geared motorcycle, he gets only motorcycle with gear license, but he is allowed to drive motorcycle without gear also. It includes motorcycle without gear. Then if he drives a car, he gets a light motor vehicle license. And here we see the term transport vehicle. This transport vehicle is not every vehicle which is exhibiting the yellow registration mark. This is the difference I am now trying to point out, because when we talked about various categories of vehicles that were shown in the previous slides in the notification of 2004, these vehicles were all inclusive vehicles, like the vehicles of irrespective of any size or capacity. Only by virtue of their use for specific use, the vehicles were either registered as transport vehicles or non-transport vehicles. But here that we see in section 10 is a transport vehicle, which essentially means a vehicle which is a heavier vehicle than a light vehicle. And a light vehicle is a vehicle, light motor vehicle is a vehicle. If it is a non-transport vehicle, its unladen weight is up to 7,500, or if it is a commercial vehicle, then if the gross vehicle weight is up to 7,500 vehicles, it is a light motor vehicle. But vehicles which are heavier than light motor vehicle are all termed as transport vehicles. And this could be easily seen. Now, on the right side, as we see, there are 3 blank rows. These rows are actually, in the next slide, we'll come to, sir, next slide, please. Yeah, this was the section 10 as I was talking about. Next slide, please. Here we can see that the word transport vehicle has been put as a substitution in 1994. Prior to the substitution, we can see the basic terms that were included in section 10 was medium goods vehicles, medium passenger motor vehicles, vehicles which are having GVW of more than 7,500 and up to 12,000 kg are termed as medium vehicles, and goods vehicles and passenger vehicles which have a GVW exceeding 12,000. These are all heavy vehicles. And for all these medium heavy vehicles and heavy vehicles, they were substituted by one single term, and that was transport vehicle. So please go back to two slides back, sir. One more. Yeah. So here that we see the transport vehicle class for the purpose of driving license as given in section 10 is essentially a vehicle which has a GVW of more than 7,500, and therefore here that we see the transport vehicle is all about heavier vehicles, and therefore you need to have an experience of 1 year of driving in the category of light motor vehicle license, and then only you are qualified to appear for a transport vehicle class of vehicle class test. So this transport vehicle is essentially a heavy vehicle. We go to the next slide, please. 2 slides more ahead, please. Next. Yes. Now this transport vehicle term as defined in section 2 and subsection 47, this talks that a transport vehicle means a public service vehicle, a goods carriage. Now for our academic purpose, we'll drop the last 2 terms and we will concentrate only on public service vehicle and goods carriage. Here, as per the definition, every public service vehicle is a transport vehicle and every goods carriage vehicle is a transport vehicle. So if we see properly, a public service vehicle includes a motorcycle as operated in Goa, or even a motorcycle which was carrying pizza. A pizza carrying vehicle is also goods carriage. Okay, or a 3-wheeler auto rickshaw which is used for carrying goods, it's a goods carriage. Whereas a public service vehicle includes motorcycle taxis and the Kalipili auto rickshaws and the Kalipili taxis, the air-conditioned taxis, the radio taxis, Ola Uber taxis. These are all public service vehicles. But these are all clubbed in transport vehicle, means this transport vehicle term as defined in section 2, subsection 47 is entirely different from what is given for the driving license purpose in section 10. I hope I'm now trying to make this clear, but I will also address this if needed in the question answer part. We'll move ahead.
Yeah.
Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. Just a minute. The previous one. Yeah. Sorry, this was the slide I was talking about. Now I'm coming to a next question, which may be of definitely interest of the audience. That because there are certain limitations, particularly insurance people feel that there is a differentiation between a learner's license and a permanent license. And therefore, I have posed a question that what would be the fate of a claim if a motorcycle driven in Mumbai by a person holding a learner's license issued by RTO Indore, and that person is involved in a road accident. And if the rider is riding his bike all alone without a licensed pillion rider, would his own damages be compensated? This is a question posed to all of you. But of course, due to the limitations in the webinar presentation, I'm going ahead. I hope this question is of interest to people. Is anybody on the line?
Yeah.
Sir, Dr. Agarwal, is it okay?
If anybody wants
I hope this is a question of some interest or curiosity for the people.
Yes, please. So if anybody wants to reply on this, they can enter in the chat box.
Right, sir. Go ahead, sir. Please explain this, sir.
Yes, sir. Because I have come across so many queries from insurance managers who particularly felt that the learner's license had a limitation of the jurisdiction where the license is given. That is the district where the license is issued, or the state where the learner's license is issued. Only in that state the person can drive during his period of this learner's license experience, and only a driving license is valid throughout India. That was the impression that they also had, and therefore I thought I should share this part with you. And secondly, people had their queries like, if a learner's license holder is driving, then he has to be accompanied with a person who has a permanent license. So carrying the corollary to the two-wheeler also, on a two-wheeler, if a learner's license holder is driving, then he should necessarily be accompanied with a pillion rider who is holding a license. That is the way it has been looked into. But actually now, I'll share the next slide, please. Next, yes. Now, firstly, Section 13 of the Motor Vehicle Act says that a learner's license or a driving license issued under the Act shall be effective throughout India. So, even if a learner's license is obtained and there are certain restrictions on the learner's license holder, which are entailed in CMVR, Central Motor Vehicle Rule 3, except with those exceptions, the learner's license holder has almost many privileges as like the permanent license holder. And one of the privileges is a learner's license is valid throughout India, just like a driving license or a permanent license. And there is Section 13. Next, please. Now, Section 3, which is the basic enabling section for the driving license, which talks about necessity of driving license, which says a person needs to hold an effective driving license to drive a specific category of vehicle. Like somebody wants to drive a scooter or a motorcycle, he needs to have a license for that motorcycle, and not a car license. He is not entitled to drive a motorcycle. So if he wants to have a motorcycle, he wants to drive a motorcycle, then he has to have a license for the category of class of motorcycle. That is the way Section 3 is put. Next slide, please. Yeah. It also says that a person holding a learner's license also gets an equivalent authority subject to compliance of Rule 3 of the CMVR. So we are actually talking about in Section 3, but now it is referring to CMVR 3. So with those conditions, if they are put into, they are obligatory, but with those conditions, a learner's license holder has an equivalent authority to drive a vehicle just like a permanent license holder. That is the way. And therefore, whatever query I had put 2 slides back, that if a license holder who has obtained a learner's license in Indore and he meets an accident with an accident in Mumbai, even then he will get all the privileges that a permanent license holder gets, subject to the conditions given in CMVR 3. As far as CMVR 3 part is concerned, the queries are very much welcome. We go ahead, sir. Next FAQ, please. Yes. My next FAQ for you people is that whether a person can hold 2 driving licenses for driving the same type of vehicle, but issued by 2 different licensing authorities. Like, if I have a car license from Pune and another car license from Indore, can I hold such 2 driving licenses? That is one of my queries. Another query is, Can a person hold two driving licenses for driving two different categories of vehicles and issued by the same or different licensing authority? Like, in Pune itself, I have one document which authorizes me to drive a two-wheeler, and I have another license which authorizes me to drive a heavy vehicle. So now I have two driving licenses issued by the same authority or by different authorities, but one driving license entitles me to drive a two-wheeler and another driving license allows me to drive a heavy vehicle, whether this is legally allowed. That is my query. And of course, when we talk about the first question, that a person, whether he can hold two driving licenses of the same type of vehicle, like if I have one license issued by Pune and other license issued by Kolkata, and one of them is not valid at the time of accident or road crash, which driving license would be considered for setting the claim? That is the basic question. Now we go to the next slide, please.
So can anyone hold two different driving license in different cities?
Is anybody answering, sir, or are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. Can people hold two driving license in two different cities?
Of course not, sir. Of course not.
Because this driving license is valid throughout India.
Yes.
When we hold a license.
Because, see, sir, when the regime of the manual licenses was on, people used to, they used to conceal their details, they used to conceal their identity, and they used to have a multiple licensing. They had even more than one license issued at the same office, or they could obtain licenses at various offices. That regime is gone now. With the national-based software developed by National Informatics Center, now we have a unique licensing system under Sarthi 4.0, and therefore, if you obtain a driving license at any office in India, then you are barred from having another license throughout India. And if you manage it through like two different Aadhaar cards or two different identities, even then that is an offense. Now we go ahead in the next slide, please. Yeah, firstly, we can see the list of disqualifications under section 19 in subsection E, the 19E, which says that if a person has obtained any driving license or a license to drive a particular class of vehicle by fraud or misrepresentation. This is very important, sir. So if you conceal your identity or present fraudulent details and obtain two different licenses, then you could be disqualified from driving and your license could be revoked. This is one punishable clause given in section 19. We go ahead, sir.
And I think then insurance claim also will be rejected if.
Of course, sir. Yes, because once the license is disqualified, he stands without license. And when he is without license, automatically the claim could be repudiated, sir. Yes, sir. Just a minute. Okay. Is this so? Actually, I think I have messed with some slides. What can I do so that I'm not getting it?
Yeah,
how could I
move the slides?
Just a minute. We'll go 3-4 slides ahead, sir. Ahead. Next one. आगे जाएंगे सर. आगे जाएंगे, पीछे नहीं. आगे जाएंगे सर. और आगे जाएंगे. और आगे. इसके भी आगे. आगे जाइए सर. हाँ, और आगे सर. और आगे. हाँ, yes sir. Sir, एक मिनट, एक slide पहले. I'm very sorry. I've messed with the slide sequence. Now, section 6 specifically mentions, it provides that no person shall, while he holds any driving license for the time being in force, hold any other driving license except a learner's license. इसका सीधा मतलब है sir, that if I have a license for motorcycle with gear, I cannot have another driving license, but I am at liberty to have a learner's license for a different category. Like मेरे पास अगर motorcycle with gear का license है, that I can have a learner's license for a car or a tractor or an auto rickshaw. And after the learner's license experience, I will appear for the test. And after appearing for the test, if I am successful, that class would be added to the same driving license. And therefore, in all, I will be having only one document at one point of time, which is effective for throughout India. and whatever categories I am entitled to, all those classes of vehicles would be added in the same driving license. And this section 6 is mandatory, which says that you cannot have second document. To the extent, sir, that in case if you misplace your driving license or your driving license is damaged, and you declare that I have misplaced my driving license, and you obtain a duplicate one. So this duplicate license now has the same details in the previous license, like the class of vehicle or the validity. But yet, when you find the original license, it is your duty to surrender the misplaced license to the authority. That is what the law says. So once a duplicate license is issued, only that duplicate issued license is your valid authorized license document and no other license. Even the misplaced license which has been found, even that cannot be used as a replica of the later issued duplicate license. It is to that extent. Next slide, please.
So then anyone can get a duplicate license in any city?
Yeah, sir.
Anyone can get duplicate license in any city? Actually,
yes, sir. With this this new national-based software, now if I have obtained my driving license in Pune and I come to Kolkata and I am serving in Calcutta for a while and I am staying there, during my stay in Calcutta, if I lose my I can come to know that I have misplaced my license. Even in Kolkata, sitting in Kolkata, firstly I can have a duplicate license right from Pune authority only due to the national software. But if I want to change the address, the same Pune license, the change of address could be effected even in on this same license in Kolkata.
Kolkata also.
Yeah, if I am there for a temporary period, then I can have a duplicate license sitting in Kolkata also from Pune authority. Or otherwise, if I have shifted to Calcutta, I can effect the change of address, but I need not go back to Pune for this formality. That can be done even when I am sitting in Kolkata. Yes, sir.
Should I go back? Or?
No, sir, ahead. No, sir. We have to go back. Yeah, we go back. Now, the 3 slides back. Now we are discussing this scenario. The previous one. Previous. Yes, sir. Now, this is one query I am trying to put, sir. That, see, now we have 2 scenarios. I am talking about the scenarios because the Motor Vehicle Act was subjected to a major shuffling and changes from effect of 1st September 2019. And there was a situation of validity of licenses which existed prior to 1st September 2019. And things have changed from that date prospectively. So we are trying to discuss a scenario wherein in the first scenario, a driving license has expired on 8th August 2019. And within 2 days, the driver meets with an accident on 10th August, within 2 days. But during these 2 days, he has not applied for renewal. And he applies for a renewal on 11th August, the next day. Now, in this case, when the accident has happened on 10th August, after the expiry of the license, can the claim be paid? Because a driving license could be renewed 30 days prior to the date of expiry, isn't it? But he has not renewed. He has failed to renew within those 30 days prior to the expiry. And immediately after the expiry, within 2 days, he has, he got involved in a crash. And the next day, when he is relieved from the police station, say he gets bail, and next day he comes and applies for a renewal. Whether the claim could be paid, that is one part. And if the driving license is renewed after payment of fees on 11th August, will it be renewed from 9th August? That is my query, which is of great interest, which I have come across with all insurance managers. Because majority of the people were of the opinion that he has a liberty to get the license renewed within the 30 days from the date of expiry. This is prior to the amendment. But if during those 30 days, if there is an accident that occurs, then if his license is not renewed, then the claim will not be given to him, and therefore the claim could be repudiated by virtue of the only fact that he applied for the renewal after the accident. That was the way, that was the opinion that was given, where now I have to, because though it is a situation prior to the amendment, it is very much effective because we deal with the compensation, we deal with the claims which are prior to September 19, 2019 also. The next slide, please. Yeah, this was a proviso to section 14. Section 14 deals with the validity of driving license. As we all know, our license is valid, was valid rather, prior to September 19 amendment. The validity of license was given up to the age of 50. If I am a 21-year-old boy and I apply for a driving license and I get a license for a motorcycle with gear, I will get a license for 20 years from the date of issue of license. Because if I'm 21, then I'll get a license for 20 years, that is up to 41. And thereafter I'll be renewing my license. But if I'm say 34 years of age and I appear for a driving test, then my license will be valid till I complete the age of 50. That was the way it was taken, it was considered, because section 14 said so. But in addition to that, there was a provision to section 14 which said that every driving license shall means it is a mandatory clause. Every driving license shall, notwithstanding the expiry under this subsection, continue to be effective for a period of 30 days from such expiry, which directly means that in our case, we go to the previous slide, sir. Yeah, where which says that the driving license, if it has expired on 8th August and he applies for 11th August, he applies for renewal on 11th August, then also his license would be issued, renewed from 9th August only. Though he has appeared 3 days later after the expiry, yet his license would be continuously renewed immediately from 8th August onwards, that is from 9th August. And if the accident has happened on 10th August, still the license would be treated as valid, because that proviso to section 14 says that the license by default is valid for 30 days even after the date of expiry, whether you renew it or you don't renew it. For example, in this case, in this scenario, if the driver meets with an accident on 10th August and he is killed in that accident, then there is no reason how he could appear for a renewal for a license. Secondly, if he is, he is dismembered. If, for example, if his leg is removed due to the accident and he is discharged from the hospital, say after 6 months, but still his license could not be renewed because now he has lost his limb, and therefore his license will remain expired from 8th August onwards. And therefore, in this case, when the accident has taken place on 10th August and his license is not renewed at all, even then, due to the proviso of section 14, the license was deemed valid for 30 days from 8th August, that is up to 6th September in any case, whether you renew it or you don't renew it. That is the scenario I was talking about. But this all existed prior to 1st September 2019. Now we go to scenario 2, that is after September 2019. 2 slides ahead, sir. Next, please. Yes. Now this is one scenario which is after September 2019. So I have taken a similar kind of situation, but now the backdrop has changed. The legal implications are different, which says now that if a driving license lapses on 8th April and the accident happens on 10th April, it means same 2 days later, and the renewal is done on 11th April, can the claim be paid? Now see, the situation is similar as far as the road is concerned, but now the legal backdrop has changed. In this case, now we need to understand that if the driving license has expired on 8th April, then on 9th April, the driver is without a driving license, without a valid driving license. Because now the amendment says that there is no grace period. You have to renew it before expiry of the license. Now this license, initially prior to September 2019, that could be renewed say 30 days prior to the date of expiry. Now the authority, the law says that one can renew his driving license within 1 year before the date of expiry. So if the license is going to expire on 8th April 2021, then from 9th April 2020 onwards, he could have renewed his license any moment, any time, at his convenience, but within that year, before the date of expiry. After the date of expiry, after midnight, his license stands invalid, and therefore in this case, if the accident occurs on 10th April and he has not renewed his license before 8th April, then his renewal on 11th April will be treated as a renewal after the accident, and therefore on 9th and 10th April, it will be held that he was without driving license. That is the way the law has now changed. Only thing, as far as, of course, the insurance managers repudiate the claim on this ground that on the day of accident, the license was not valid. But the judiciary, the courts, they are not only interested in interpreting the legal aspect, but they are also there to protect the interests of the society. And in that case, what they do is, because they always have a view that though the license has expired 2 days before, the driver has not lost his driving skills, and therefore he was skilled though his license was not valid, and therefore that pay and recover aspect comes. That is, the insurance company firstly pays the claim to the victim, and then it recovers from the owner. That is the way they do. But the victim is, the victim is not, he does not suffer out of this legal glitch. I hope I am very clear.
But still, I think then confusion exists whether the claim can be rejected or not, because it may be interpreted differently by maybe insurance company. And
my point is that the OD claim will be definitely rejected.
Comprehensive.
The OD claim will be definitely rejected, but the liability claim, the court may take different stand altogether.
But in that case also, sir, law says that if the driving license was not valid, the insurance company was right in repudiating the claim. But in that case, the insurance company plays as a coordinator, a nodal agency, like it firstly pays to the victim and then it recovers from the owner. That is the way the cases are handled, sir.
Yes, sir. So, going back to the scenario 1, that is Amendment 2019, before that scenario.
Yes, sir.
Suppose somebody's driving license expired on 8th.
Right.
He applied for renewal on 11th.
Right.
The driving license used to renewed from 11th or 8th. My understanding is it was renewed from 11th only, not 8th.
No, sir. As I was talking about the proviso after this slide, next slide, please.
Right.
Next slide. When we see this proviso, sir, that in any case, a driving license, whether you renew it within 30 days or you don't renew it, by default it is valid for 30 days, and therefore, if a license was renewed during these 30 days, by default his license was renewed as if from 9th August only. 9th April.
Okay, right. Okay, sir. Any day within those 30 days. Very
good. Now that liberty has gone, sir.
And in case of driving license, sir, if my driving license say it expires today, I did not renew it.
Right.
Then if I renew it, then what will be the day I renew it, from that day it will be valid?
Yes, sir. As I was taking in the scenario number 2, that is post September 2019, if a license expires on 8th April and it is renewed on 11th April, it will, that between 9th and 10th April, it will be a broken period. That license will be held as invalid on 9th or 10th.
Okay. I have one question on learner license, sir.
Sir.
In learner license, it is for the say in case of car, it is mandatory that another person should be sitting beside him with a valid, effective driving license, controlling the driver.
In a position where he could control or he can command.
What is the case in case of two-wheeler, sir?
So two-wheeler is an exception. CMVR 3. If seen properly, in rule number 3 of the Central Motor Vehicle Rules, various sub-rules are given Right now, I'm not having the text. If somebody could read out the text right now, there is a proviso to CMVR 3, sir, which says that the basic condition given in rule CMVR 3, which calls for presence of a license holder along with the vehicle, and that too seated in such a position that he is able to control the vehicle or help out the learner.
Right.
But in case of two-wheeler, there is a condition like if the learner's license holder is driving all alone, he is allowed. But in case, for example, I'll take a case where an 18-year-old boy obtains learner's license and he is driving a vehicle. Now he has two options. Either he can ride all alone or he can ride with a pillion seat. But if the pillion seat is not a license holder, if the pillion seat rider is not having a driving license for motorcycle, then he is not competent to sit. He is not allowed to sit on that vehicle.
Right.
So, if he wants to carry his mother during his learner's license period, then his mother needs to have a learner's driving license for motorcycle. Then she will be termed as a attendant or a guide or a trainer. But if she doesn't have a license, then she is not qualified to sit on the vehicle. Then he has the liberty to go all alone. These two options are available. Yeah.
So in that scenario, if a learner driver is driving without a pillion driver, meets with an accident, we should be paying the claim.
Yeah, the claim has to be paid, sir. Yes, because it is legally allowed.
But in car, he has to mandatorily one person sitting.
Yes. In case of car, sir.
What about commercial vehicles, sir? The same rule follows that of car?
Sir, except for two-wheelers, the rule CMVR 3 is applicable for all other categories of vehicles. So whether it is a car or a commercial vehicle, a truck or any other vehicle. Actually, there is a glitch in this also. For example, if I have a learner's license for tractor and that tractor doesn't have a position to place any second person, nobody else is allowed to sit on the tractor.
Okay.
So during learner's license, if I am driving a tractor, then CMVR 3 says I need to carry a trainer with me, but the trainer is not given any place to sit.
Okay.
So there is a glitch in the law actually.
Okay.
But except for two-wheelers, all other vehicles during learner's license probation, the driver has to, it is mandatory on him to carry one person who is already having a driving license for that category of vehicle. Yes, sir.
Okay. Rakeshji, could I ask you other questions, a related question, or first?
Yeah, we can.
Sir, going back to your slides on driving license.
Right, sir.
Now, after LMB, you have a transport vehicle license.
Right, sir.
And there is no differentiation between goods carrier and passenger carrier. But normally we say that we need to have PSB endorsement for a passenger carrier.
Right.
Isn't it? That is the rule, sir. If I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Can we go to that slide, Dr. Agarwal, sir? Section 10 वाला जो था शुरू में था और 3-4 स्लाइड आगे पीछे जाइए और जाइए सर और थोड़ा
जा रहा हूं
और सर प्लीज हाँ अभी इसके पहले वाला होगा सर नहीं और इसके पहले प्लीज हाँ ये हाँ और एक स्लाइड पहले सर प्लीज यस see sir, now this section 10 says that these are the classes of vehicles which could be put on the driving license.
Right.
Now as you see here, there is one class of light motor vehicle. If you go to the definition of light motor vehicle in the section 2 of the Motor Vehicle Act, sir, this light motor vehicle includes all the non-transport vehicles like car, okay?
Right.
But it also includes the commercial vehicles like goods vehicles or passenger vehicles which have a GVW only up to 7,500.
Less than 7,500, sir.
Yes. Therefore, if one obtains a license for light motor vehicle, he is entitled to drive all these vehicles which have a GVW of a cap of 7,500 kg. But as you rightly said, if the driver, if he wants to drive a commercial vehicle in southern states like Karnataka, Andhra, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, for any commercial vehicle, he has to have a PSV authorization. Okay. But
goods and passenger both, sir.
But in Maharashtra and other northern states, and perhaps even in West Bengal, if one wants to drive a goods vehicle, he need not have a PSV authorization, because that is a prerogative given to the states.
Okay, sir.
So this provision is given in every state rules. For example, in Maharashtra, Rule 4 of the Maharashtra Motor Vehicle Rule says that only for passenger vehicles which are being used as commercial vehicles, to drive such a vehicle, one needs an authorization to drive such a public service vehicle, like a auto rickshaw or a taxi or a bus. All these passenger carrying vehicles, if one wants to drive, he needs to have a light motor vehicle license and plus an authorization that he can drive a public service vehicle.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Sir, coming back. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If you want to add, sir.
The last part was transport vehicle also. This transport vehicle means all vehicles which are heavier than the light motor vehicle.
Right.
So these are mostly passenger the commercial vehicles in this, sir. The goods vehicles and the passenger vehicles. So in southern states, all these transport vehicle driving license holders, they need to have a PSV authorization. Whereas in northern states, only the passenger, means the passenger carrying vehicles, if somebody wants to have a passenger license, then only one will have a PSV authorization. Yes, sir. We can move ahead now. Any other query? Yes, sir.
The other question is about disqualification, because the insurance policies driver clause says a person holding an effective driving license and is not disqualified from obtaining an effective driving license.
Yes.
So the list of disqualification is quite long, as I have read, sir.
Yes, sir.
You have shown few.
Actually,
in a case where a driving license is issued for a period of 20 years, a person develops some physical disqualification. What is the fate of such a driving license in such cases?
Sir, firstly, as you rightly said, that a non-transport license has a validity of, say, 20 years. It used to have. Now the things have changed. After this September 2019, the validities have now been restricted. If some person who is less than 30 years of age, he applies for a driving license, he gets a license only up to the 40 years of his age. Say from 18 to 30, whatever his age may be, he gets a license only up to the age of his 40 years of completion. If he has crossed 30 years, if he is, say, 31 years of 39 years, he crossed 30 years and is less than 50 years, then he gets a license for 10 years from the date of issue. It's a little now complicated. If somebody is at the age of 31, he takes a license, he gets a license for 10 years. If somebody is of 49 years of age, he gets a license for 10 years. So between 30 and 50, if a new license is given, it is given for 10 years, 10 not calendar years, 10 proper 10 years. And if somebody is more than 50 years of age, up to the age of 55, he gets a license only up to 60 years of his age. But if somebody is more than 55 years of his age, then his license could be issued for 5 years from the date of issue, or from the date of his renewal. It will be 5 years license. All this, now the section 14 has changed, but still the query remains that during the validity of the license, if somebody is physically incapacitated out of any reason, whether due to an accident or any other reason, then also, what about the disqualification? Here, actually, sir, a commercial license is valid for 5 years now. Previously, it was for 3 years. Now it is valid for 5 years. So after 5 years, he comes for a renewal, and at the time of renewal, the doctor has to certify whether he is physically fit to obtain a license or get his license renewed. If he is physically fit, then only his license is renewed. But in spite of that, there are some cases where during the period of holding of the license, if somebody meets with an accident, then that accident has to be taken into account, and it has to be checked whether he has undergone any kind of incapacitation out of that accident, and that has to be taken into account by the licensing authority. And if that is hindering his driving skills or hindering his driving capabilities, then his license needs to be revoked. But Now that we are moving in that direction, and with all this computerization of driving license record is in its place now, majority of the license are now recorded and renewed on computers. And from now onwards, when the accident data is properly collated and the things are coordinated, then only this thing can happen, that out of accident, if somebody is physically incapacitated, his license would be revoked and he would stand disqualified under section 19. But there was one more interesting case, like one case in Pune, where there was
Mane case.
Santosh Mane case. Because he was
sir.
physically fit, but he was mentally disturbed. And out of
Right,
that
that is my question, sir.
He was out of mental disturbance. What he did was, he pulled out his bus from the depot. He brought the bus out of the depot and he just started running his bus in a road where there was no entry allowed for vehicles. It was a no entry road, but he directly went on a rampage, and in that process he destroyed so many vehicles. But more importantly, I think 9 persons were killed.
9 persons were killed, sir.
Yeah. But later, when he was medically examined, it was found that he was mentally disturbed. And that fact was reported to the licensing authority, that is RTO Pune. And RTO Pune revoked his license only because the incident was reported. Normally what happens is, this accident is reported to the police station. From police station, the charge sheet is given to taken to the court of law. From the court of law, the case is, the proceedings are on whether he is guilty or not guilty, and the license is given back to the driver. Previously, licensing authority was not involved in this, because normally driver, as we say, the driver, if the injury of the driver or his incapacitation was not taken into account from that point of view, from section 19 point of view. But now it is possible and it will happen, sir, from now onwards. Yes, sir.
So my stand on that, I was in Pune and my stand was that since he was suffering from depression, mental problem, the driver's clause that and is not disqualified, and in this case, as you rightly said, he was disqualified. Yes. In such case, we could have not paid the claim. Suppose there was a claim, we would not have paid the claim, saying that the driver was disqualified.
Actually, what you say, sir, it could be contested, because at the time of accident, his license was valid, and it was not known to the authority that he was mentally unstable, and therefore it was not reported. Till the reporting, nobody knows, and the license is effective. Somebody has to report, and that after that reporting, then it is the role of the authority to revoke the license. Then it is the onus of the authority. But till the point that the incident is not reported, that he is mentally not stable and is not fit to drive, or rather mentally incapacitated, then this license stands valid and it could be contested. Because if this aspect that you rightly said, in case of Mr. Santosh Mane, if that mental disturbance was reported to the authorities and yet they did not pay any heed, then the vicarious liability comes into picture, wherein the owners also now, they are liable to pay because they had neglected this aspect. They did not report this to the licensing authority.
Right, sir.
But if this mental disturbance was not reported at any point of time, then perhaps the insurance company is in trouble. Rather, they are at a loss. That is my take. People that debated. Yeah.
Right, sir.
And I think we have one more question from Mr. Ayan.
Yes, sir. That is more important, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. If during COVID-19 pandemic, expired driving license, suppose dated 11 January, validity is extended to 31st March.
Right.
So then what happens? So in case of any accident.
Sir, just a minute. He said Mr. 11 January, right? 11 January 2021 or 2020?
2021, it expired. But government had extended the validity to say 31st March.
Right.
Since due to pandemic, they could not.
Of course, yes.
So then what happens in case of any claim, or then it will be regarded as a valid license?
Yes, sir. There are basically two aspects. Two severe aspects where the driving license holder, everything is at stake. For example, if his license has expired on 11th January and he is driving his vehicle today, that is 27th of Feb. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As the notification says that his driving license by default is valid up to 31st March. That means if I am checked today on the road, even if my license says that the license has expired on 11 Jan, yet due to that notification, my license is valid until 31st March. So even the checking authorities cannot challan me. And secondly, if I am involved in an accident and today is 27 Feb, the claim has to be paid because by default the license is valid 31st March. It is valid.
Yes.
That is very much effective, sir. Yes, sir.
Fine.
So see, I think is there a previous slide, sir, please, just to make sure. Okay.
Effective, sir.
हाँ, तो हम बैटरी ऑपरेटेड व्हीकल का एफएक्यू था, उस पे जाएंगे या और कुछ क्वेरीज है, सर?
Yeah, I think we are already time is 5:15.
Oh yeah.
So
I can rush through because this is the last query actually.
Okay, so battery operated you can just clear.
Yes, sir. Actually, battery operated vehicles, now there is a scene where battery operated vehicles without numbers are also running on the roads, and some battery operated vehicles are registered. Means I'm talking about the two-wheelers. In two-wheelers, there is an option whether the registration is required or not, and that is based on the definition given in the battery operated vehicle. And that definition says, as defined in the CMVR 2, that if a battery operated vehicle has a traction, has an electric motor, power being supplied by a traction battery, and that results, next sir, next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. And if that vehicle, no, previous to that, and if that vehicle will not be a battery operated vehicle or a motor vehicle, because if the output for continuous 30 minutes is less than 250 watts or 0.25 kilowatts, and if the maximum speed is less than 25 kilometers an hour, the rated speed, then it is not a motor vehicle at all. If it is not a motor vehicle, then no registration is necessary, no driving license is necessary. So even though if some vehicle is manufactured by a manufacturer wherein both the vehicles are identical, but if one vehicle is running at a maximum speed of 24 kilometers an hour with an electric output of say 245 watts, and other vehicle which has a speed of say instead of 24 it goes up to 35 or 40 speed, and the electrical output is more than 250 watts, then the vehicles may be looking identical, but the slower vehicle or a less powerful vehicle will not need a registration or license, whereas the vehicle which is a little faster vehicle or a powerful vehicle, that will need a license and it will need registration. That's right. My submission. Yes.
Thank you, sir. So, Rakeshji, should we?
Yeah, we had a short time, but I tried to do justice to this aspect, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir.
One question from Mr. Rahul Verma.
Sure.
Presently, as per COVID situation and notification, all DL allowed up to 31st March or not?
Right. Yes, sir. All driving licenses, no, all means there is one rider for it. Licenses which have expired after 31st January 2020.
Okay.
Mind it, I'm carefully, please take this term properly. If a license has expired after 31st January 2020, then such license would be treated as valid license until this 31st March 2021.
Okay.
But if some license which has expired 2 or 3 years back, say in 2019 or before 31st January 2020, if that is expired, it remains expired and it will not be allowed or it will not be treated as a valid license for today.
Okay.
That is the only right answer.
Yes, yeah. Yes. So I think we have finished up with the questions.
Yes. I hope the session was useful for the audience, sir.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
No, the session was quite interesting and quite interactive also, and we got to know a lot of new things also.
Yes, sir. So, of course, sir, I am available on my mail address, which has been given in the presentation. If there are some serious queries, those queries could be mailed to me, and I will respond to them, sir, as and when possible.
Thank you so much, sir. So, sir, राकेश जी, vote of thanks आप ही दे दीजिए, हम तो शुरू करवाए.
So thanks a lot, Dr. Jadhav, for sparing your valuable time. So indeed, it was very interesting to know the nitty-gritties, and if we keep talking upon this topic, I think 1 hour or 2 hours is very limited.
Exactly.
It needs lot of time and a series of sessions to deal on this very important topic. And
Yes,
in
sir.
fact, motor insurance is one of the biggest portfolio in insurance industry. So we would be we can organize much more sessions like this in future also, and
Sure.
there we can take some more case studies concerning motor vehicles. So, but again, thanks a lot, Dr. Jadhav, for an interesting session and sparing your valuable time. So, thanks from all members of RMEI, and we will definitely look forward to invite you again for our future sessions.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.